is more than one way to run our JUnit 5 test scripts. So in this session, I will demonstrate how to execute this test scripts using the IDE. Also, you will learn how to execute commands from Maven using the terminal. At the end, I am going to demo how to execute our test scripts without using a static method in the configuration annotation. For starters, let's run every test in the project by going to the IDE, right-clicking Java, and selecting Run All Tests. The Run window will have a breakdown based on the JUnit platform, JUnit Jupyter and JUnit Vintage. Yes, we see both platforms, JUnit Jupyter and JUnit Vintage. The JUnit 4 test scripts was executed and passed under JUnit Vintage, while JUnit Jupyter shows the JUnit 5 test scripts. Recall, 2 JUnit 5 test scripts were converted from JUnit 4. Now, let's take a step back, because JUnit Jupyter and JUnit Vintage provide a test engine for running our test scripts. The difference is JUnit Jupyter runs JUnit 5 test scripts, while JUnit 4 are executed using JUnit Vintage. And also, JUnit Vintage execute JUnit 3 test scripts. So, JUnit Jupyter shows 3 test scripts, 2 passed and 1 failed. JUnit Vintage has 1 test script that passed. So there was a total of 4 test scripts. To run, we can also go to the menu by selecting Run, or we can click the green play arrow button that also has a shortcut for Shift F10. Now, let's also execute our test scripts from the command line using Maven. Maven is a project management tool based on the project object model concept. We use it to build a Java project and to manage a Java project. There are 3 built-in Maven lifecycles. We have default, clean, and site. The purpose of default is to manage our project deployment. Clean manages cleaning part of our project, and site creates our website. We will focus on the default lifecycle, which has 7 phases: validate, compile, test, package, verify, install, and deploy. Those are the 7 phases of the default lifecycle. The first phase is validate. It validates our project is correct and all of the required information is available. Compile is the process of putting together the project source code. The next phase is test. It tests the source code with JUnit 5. JUnit 5 is the test framework. Package is a phase that compiles the source code, then packages the source code into a distributable format. Verify runs a check on the integration test to ensure the quality. After the verify phase is install. It installs the package into our local repository. Deploy is the last phase. The purpose is to compile the final package to the remote repository for sharing with our developers and projects. These are the phases for the default Maven lifecycle. Now, let's execute our project using the Maven command. In the IDE, I'm going to the terminal. Then type mvn space clean space test. mvn clean is a command to clean the project and remove all files that were generated by the previous build. Test is a command to execute the test. Watch what happens when I hit enter. The test scripts did not execute. We see build success in green, but nothing happened. Okay, so let's go to the pom.xml file. We must add the Maven Surefire plugin. The purpose is to invoke the test phase so we can execute our test scripts. We start by writing build. And let me bring this up some so you can have more room to see. So we start by writing build, and within the build, we write plugins with an S. Next is to write plugin. Yes. Now within plugin, we're going to write group ID, and the group ID is org.apache.maven.plugins. Yes. Now for the version, let's select 3.0.0 MN. Yes. And the artifact ID we see is Maven Surefire plugin. The next thing, we must load our Maven changes. And that's it. Now, when I go back to the terminal, we should be able to execute our Maven test. Press up and execute one more time. Maven clean test, or MVN clean test. Now the test scripts are running. And we're going to see print statements and the test results. And we should also see in the terminal a total of 4 test scripts with 1 failure. The same way we saw in the run window. We see, yes, test is run, we see 4, and we see 1 failure. Now, for the message, we see actual and expected messages do not match. Expected radio button female is checked, but was radio button female is checked. You know what? Let me go to the run window. In the run window, when I click the yellow X, we see the same assertion failed error when clicking a yellow X. Yes, and the message is the same. Actual and expected messages do not match. The messages look alike, but they are not alike. For the expected message, we see a capital B for button, a capital I for ears, and a capital C for checked. However, the actual message does not show those letters as an uppercase. So that's the difference, and that's why the test failed. So let me go to the class that has the radio button demo test. And I want to show you something. Okay, did you notice that 2 of these JUnit annotations has static in the method signature? It's only the configuration annotation, before all and after all. So for before all, we see public static, then void. Then the method name, before all. Before each does not have static. Do not see static. We only see public void. And it's the same with the test annotation. We see public void for both test annotations in that method. Now, the after each annotation also shows public void. The difference is the last annotation after all shows public static void. So for before all and after all, we see public static. Look what happens when I remove static. Hover after all, and the IntelliSense shows after all has incorrect signature. According to JUnit 5, this is not right because static blocks are always executed one time when the class loader puts the class in memory. Let me add back static right quick. Okay, so JUnit 5 prefers us to keep static in the signature, but it is not required. Now, I will demonstrate how to execute test scripts without static. Let me go back to the IDE. And I'm going to copy and paste this radio button demo test. Change the name from radio button demo test by adding without static. So I'm going to remove static from before all, and I'm going to remove static, and we see how it also shows that same message about the incorrect signature. I'm going to scroll down to after all and remove static. Now, let's run and see what happens. It's going to fail, but watch what the console shows us. The console shows JUnit exception before all method. Let me go some more. And it shows public void. And if I keep scrolling, we see it shows must be static unless the test class is annotated with test instance, life cycle per class. The same error shows up if we execute using Maven. So if I go to terminal and I scroll down and go Maven clean test, we will see the same error message. I apologize. Let me write it for that particular class, because this here, I did not write for that class. I'm executing for all classes. So when this finish, I'm going to only execute Maven for that class. And it's a different way to write it. We write MVN, clean test. Now we write hyphen, capital D, test, equals the name, which is radio button demo test with an S without static. Now let me run. That's the command to run for particular test. Now, when I scroll up, we should see the same message. Yes, you see how it shows JUnit before all, and it shows right here, must be static unless the test class is annotated with test instance, life cycle per class. Let's go to the class. You know what? Let me explain this part right quick. The error message gives us a clue on what we need to do because it shows must be static unless the test class is annotated. So it's letting us know we can annotate the test class because it must be static. If it's not static, the test class must be annotated with test annotation lifecycle per class. That's the clue. So now let's go to the test class, and at the top above class, we write at test instance. The test instance annotation allows us to configure the lifecycle of a JUnit 5 test. Next is test instance dot life cycle. We have two modes, per method and per class. Per method is the default mode, and per class allows us to create one instance of the test class and reuse it between each test. Now let's run. This time it should execute without an error. One test passed and one test failed. We do not see the error. We see in the console the print statements and we see the assertion, but it does not show that message about the test instance. You know what? Let me also run it in the terminal. Go down and run. Okay, so now that it finished running, let's look at the results. Yes, it shows 2 tests and 1 failed, and it showed that assertion message that we saw the last time. That's it for running our test scripts in Jupyter. Next, I will demo timeouts in JUnit 5. If you would like to learn more, then make sure to follow the blogs at www.LambdaTest.com/blog and community.LambdaTest.com. In addition to the blogs, you can earn a certification at www.LambdaTest.com/certifications. Get educated, get recognized.